My name is Dominique Morgan. I live in Atlanta, Georgia currently, but I am born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I lived in Atlanta for about 2 years. By day, I work in philanthropy. I lead the fund for transgenerations at Borealis Philanthropy. I also, am an artist and a writer, and I really try to find as many avenues as I can to express myself. I think that as human beings, we deserve more than one way to show up. Um, in regards to, I'm also a Pisces, I feel like that matters. In regards to my journey in being a woman, I am a Black trans woman, a woman of trans experience, and I'm 42 years old currently. I started my medical and social transition in March of 2020. So, right smack dab in the pandemic, I was beginning this journey to manifest the biggest and best version of myself. And so, for the last 4.5 years, I think there's a juxtaposition between knowing what I needed and then having access to it, and the experience of womanhood in this society is one of the most difficult yet one of the most rewarding things I've ever experienced. And I feel like when women and femmes talk about what it takes to be a woman in this world, and people take it as, oh, you're just complaining, it's in the same breath, you're knowing that the gift of being a woman in this world is so powerful and so transformative that, I'll put up with all the crap um, to be able to enjoy the life that I have.
But the three pillars of Ignite Her, the three values really are empowering leadership, intersectional feminism, and rhetorical feminism. So this kind of leads
Mhm.
me to my next question about what is your unique experience with misogyny and double standards? Because as we know, feminism is not something that everyone has the same experience with. Misogyny is not something that everyone has the same experience with. And I just want to learn more about your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think my experience with misogyny and feminism and the patriarchy are unique for me, specifically as a Black trans woman that transitioned at 38. And so, although I've always been very feminine, the world has always navigated me in a very feminine way. There are clear privileges that they immediately like dissipated upon my transition. And I feel like with trans women, Black trans women of color specifically, right? Because the same beauty standards that women of color and Black women, who cisgender Black women experience, they impact trans women of color as well, right? Um, and they think that the loss of privilege or the level of beauty you have is directly correlated between the world recognizing your womanhood. The truth of the matter is, there was an immediate moment, I'll never forget it. I was coming home. I was still living in Nebraska. It was a pandemic, so it wasn't like a lot of people were around. And I would come home late at night all the time and not think about it. And mind you, I remember my sisters and my cousins and my friends being like, watching them go to their car and all these things. Even my parents teaching me that, like, you don't let a woman walk to the car by themselves. And there was a moment when I was afraid to get out of my car to walk to my door, which was a few steps, and calling my friend on FaceTime and asking him, knowing it felt ridiculous, but asking him to, like, hey, look over my shoulder, because for the first time I realized, regardless of like my journey and my transition, the world saw me as a woman, which meant the world would abuse me the way the world abuses women. And it was a situation where I knew I was losing a level of protection, but also that protection wasn't enough to make me want to live. The protection wasn't enough to make me feel like I was a whole person. And very, I think it's a rite of passage and a byproduct of misogyny, white feminism, and the patriarchy that women of color, Black women, have to trade one thing to get something better, right? You don't get to keep the protection and get the wholeness of yourself. And and that is my understanding in work. in realizing that the more power and the more privilege I have as a philanthropist, as a leader, I have to balance that between still being seen soft enough and woman enough. And the men have to think I'm smart enough, and the women have to want to wear the dress that I have on, right? I have to bring both. And it is being a woman in this world and navigating patriarchy and these systems you discussed means you have to be a strategist. And I think that what I've learned about Ignite Her and what I know about programs like this, you all are positioning young women to think about being a strategist. And I understand that sometimes it feels boring to kind of think about that. But I promise you, if you get the skill of being a strategic person down pat, it doesn't matter whether you are shopping, you're going to an amusement park, or you're making a deal around $1 million. You're going to do it the best and most effective way with the skills you have.
Yeah, going off a little bit about what you said about double standards, in my experience, which is obviously unique from yours, but when I was like a lot younger, I would always be called like overly emotional and shy and quiet.
Mm-hmm,
And as I got older, I
mm-hmm,
got into public speaking and got into getting a little bit confident. And suddenly I was being called like overly chatty and like
mm-hmm,
bossy, aggressive, scary, stuff like
mm-hmm,
that. And it's
mm-hmm.
so based off this, one of our pillars is rhetorical feminism. And I just wanted to ask about your experience with this kind of connotative language and this kind of stereotyping on women and what your experience is
Yeah.
with that.
Well, it's so funny. I have a gap in my teeth, and I was born with it. And my mother had one, my father had one. So growing up, I thought it was very normal. And I'll never forget, it was maybe third grade. We were taking school pictures, and some kid was making fun of my gap. And I literally have not smiled in a picture since. Like for a while, it was that I just kind of got embarrassed of it, and then it just became my norm. And now, because we live a life where, pictures are being taken, I have like a Dominique face that is perfect for any photo I want to take, right? I'll never forget the moment that the first time someone walked up to me or commented on my photo, you should smile. You look so mad. You look so nice. Why don't you smile? And I was like, no one ever cared about me smiling before. I haven't smiled in a picture in 20 years. Why is it a problem now? And I think some of the words that you shared, like aggressive or chatty or difficult, I believe those words are utilized to make us be afraid to lead. Oh, instead of saying that you're a great leader, we're going to call you bossy. I have to be a boss. I have to be a boss. I don't have a choice. I We're talking about work and life, but even in relationship, for the young folks watching this, one of the things that I think about the most is I want to have a partner that makes me feel like I don't have to be a boss. If we are in spaces where we can feel protected, we can be supported, we won't pull these skills out. But many of us are doing what we have to do to survive. And then that's being weaponized against us as if our womanhood isn't good enough because we've had to become who we are to make it as people.
Yeah, recently I held a conference with a lot of other young women, and a lot of them expressed that they had a lot of like internal struggle with the idea of being perceived and the idea of like other people seeing them out of fear of
Mm-hmm.
other people's judgment.
Yes.
So I just wanted to ask, what would you want to say to the young girls who are watching this, the young women who Ignite Her has reached, who are struggling with the same thing, who are struggling with being perceived and like trying and wanting to become leaders in their communities, but
Yeah.
finding so much fear?
I will say that it is possible to dictate how people see you. And what I mean by that, with your brand, with your strategy, with how you engage in your social media, there are some very public people in our world who have very private lives. And that is a way to balance it. I think we live in a space in society where people think authenticity means that we have to bare our chest and open ourselves up to the world. You can be authentic and also keep some of yourself for yourself, right? Two, I promise you, and I've seen it because there's also this conversation within trans women specifically about passability, right? Can you walk in the room and someone assumes that you are cisgender and that there's this myth that most trans women want to be passable? In regards to me being perceived, one of the scariest things that I have to do is maybe go to the gas station because it's like I want to be passable enough to be safe enough to go get gas, but I don't want to be so attractive to maybe if a man talks to me and it could turn into a situation where I could be harmed because he was attracted to me and because he was attracted, I'm wrong because I'm walking around as a trans person. And I think that correlates to what I hear, what you shared and other young women talk about is their mere existence feels difficult, and it feels like it's a battle just to be. And be yourself, and don't dim your light. Because what I share that in saying that I've seen a lot of people think that if I shrink myself, people won't see me. The truth of the matter is, people prey upon people no matter what. So live the best, most bright life you can. Focus on what makes you happy. If you want to wear short hair, baby, wear short hair. If you want to get bundles and you want to wear 30 inches down your back, do that. But make sure it's for you, because trends and what is beautiful and all that, that changes. I've lived long enough to where bell bottoms have come back again. They are dressing right now the way we were dressing my freshman year of high school, and charging y'all $200 for a t-shirt that we were getting from American Eagle back then. So do what makes you happy. And so even in the experience of being perceived and how the way navigates women and young girls, you'll at least have a joy that you're being yourself unapologetically.
What do you think in like the modern day, because I world is pretty interesting around this time, but like why is it so important right now to have more girls be leaders and to have women be leaders and have diverse leaders?
Well, because there is a group of women and girls in this world who have, being a leader is hard work. The idea, there are people who have natural skills to lead. Every leader has to work at it, right? And it's hard work, and there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with it. And I say that to say, there are a group of women and girls who are like, I don't want to do all that. And I might be the girl that's on the podcast that's agreeing with the guys who's saying the terrible thing, just because, you know what? I just want to get along to get along. Or maybe, you know what? I just want to marry this man because, girl, I don't feel like going out here and building an empire. I love that for you, mama. And because you have girls that are living that experience where it's like, I get it, we need girls who are out here saying, I'm going to make change, that I am going to be a part of creating solutions. We do not have thriving communities without powerful women in them. And we are in a time now where history needs to reflect. I was watching what is the Game of Thrones spinoff that's coming on, House of Dragons. Um, and it's the show is really about, if they would have crowned the daughter, you wouldn't be having all these problems. Literally. This is a prequel. And the whole story really boils down to, if the father, when he died, had given the crown to the daughter, we wouldn't have problems. And now she's had to have male sons and lead through them and all of that. So we need women and girls to be in the forefront right now, because we really know how to make things happen. And it doesn't mean that men don't. It means that our strategy, our mindset, our ability to collaborate, our ability to be innovators is very powerful. And we need power right now, especially from incredible thinkers.
Okay, and really just do you have anything else to add, or just like any closing statement or any closing message you want to send?
I would say a message is that it does not matter where your story begins. You get to dictate how it ends for you. There are going to be people in your book of life that they may have a pen and they've written a few pages, but on the spine of that book, like, it says your name. You're the author of that book. And this world that we are growing up in, and no matter how old we get, we're still growing up, right? This world we're all growing up in will tell us that women need to be quiet, and that women need to be softer, and women ask for too much, and this, that, and the third. And what I'm telling you is that there is no such thing as asking for too much if you know what you deserve. And so please take the time to think about what your worth is, and never waver on that. Don't compromise on it. And surround yourself with people who not only recognize your value, they are excited to affirm and invest in your value, and be that type of person for other people. And if we can keep that wave going, no matter what comes our way, I think we're going to have healthy and thriving communities that's centered on the powerful leadership of women and girls.
Okay, thank you so much. This was a very inspiring interview.